Hey, everybody, it's Mike Sullivan with Born to Shine. We have an amazing guest with us today. Her name is Corrie Norman, and she is amazeballs. She's been working with kids her whole life, and she lives in Utah. And I already told her I'm super jealous because I ski, she doesn't, but that's cool. And she has the best snow. And anyway, so that's that. So thanks, Corrie, for being with us. I really appreciate you making time for us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's just dive right in because you have so
Okay.
much background working with kids, and that's both of our passions. That's why I feel so lucky and grateful that you're making time for us today. And the first question is, how important is it to you and your organization for developing kids, giving them solid mental health skills? I have a feeling that's really important, but I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you're wording it as skills because what our kids need out there is twofold, right? There's that comprehensive clinical support provided by clinicians. And that is really critical to get to those deep pieces. But I really like to say what I want to focus on and what my expertise is, what we call the other 23 hours.
Hmm.
So, there's that hour, metaphorically spent in therapy and doing that deep work, but outside of that you have 23 hours in a day where that needs to be put to work, that needs to be applied. And those are skills, those are things that need to be learned, those are things that need to be fostered, developed, reinforced, curated, nurtured. And so it's the skills piece that I think that is so important. So providing kids um, the guide map of how to address whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, whether it's just expressing their feelings. So many of our kids don't know how to just express their emotions and what's going on for them. And so actively teaching them how to do that and giving them usable tools that they can use out in, when they're with their friends or when they're with their family, when they're, you know, out in the world, is what's going to make a big difference for them. So yeah, it is very important,
Yeah.
like you said.
Absolutely. And can you tell, just for our listeners, can you share what your organization is all about and the demographic of who you're helping?
Yeah. So I currently work at Eva Carlston Academy, which is a private residential treatment center for girls between the ages of 12 and 18. Our typical student is a girl who is very clinically complex, meaning she's got a lot going on internally and emotionally. These are not
Mm,
girls that we call them, they're acting in versus acting out.
mm,
These are kiddos that really struggle with anxiety and engagement, a lot of fear and depression and inability to manage. Most of our girls have experienced significant trauma.
mm,
Some of them, we have students who have experienced abuse and neglect at some level, and many of them also have what I term like organic, inherited deficits or just disabilities that that have caused their brain to just operate in a different way that has not meshed with either the traditional academic system or even their parents' understanding of how their brain works. And so these are girls that are very deeply hurting and um and have not been able to be successful outside of an environment that doesn't they need a lot of structure and containment and support, because their parents have tried, they've done all of the things. They've done the inpatient, that some of them have been had hospitalization and other really significant and scary things. I'm a parent, so I speak to this, when I always try and put myself in those shoes, and that's really scary for a parent. So for most of the kiddos that are coming to us, this is kind of this is the parents' worst point in their life, and it's certainly their kiddos' worst point in their life. And so um it's a pretty heavy situation for them to be in.
well, thank God for you and your program that it's available for those kids because It's so interesting that you mentioned that, Corey, that I think you worded it inherited, and that's so common. It's even more than we realize. If the parents have severe depression or whatever
Mhm.
the struggle is, then the child
Yeah.
that's brought into this world more than likely is going to have a higher predisposition to
Mhm.
developing that over time. Or if push comes to shove, or there's a really stressful moment in their life, they're going to be genetically wired and have a higher
Mhm.
yeah, predisposition. So it's great that, wow, it's so cool that you guys are there and to
Yeah, well,
give them.
and I think it's so easy for people to, start passing blame, oh, these weren't good parents, or
Oh, right, right.
this certain thing didn't happen at a certain point, they weren't held enough as a baby or whatever it is. And I think that it's important, you know, that we look at this whole piece of what's going on for this kiddo. And, many parents will come to us and say, my other kids are fine, but this one.
Yeah.
And um there are so many pieces that can impact how a child is able to process trauma, how they are able to demonstrate resilience or lack of resilience necessary to deal with just appropriate stressors that they come up against in their day-to-day life.
That's amazing, and that's so true. Absolutely. That every,
Mhm.
I guess it kind of dovetails nicely into the next question: is what are some of the programs that you offer? Is it kind of a one size fits all, or do you have is it very individual, based on the kids that are coming into your
Yeah.
center? How does that work?
We definitely have a specific profile and a specific program that we offer. So within, we are part of a very, very um, robust and just wonderful community of providers. And so we have our little niche of what we're really good at. And there are many other programs. For instance, I mentioned we work with girls. Obviously, there's boys programs, and there's different, some that are more rural. We're more urban based. And so really our platform and our philosophy that works for the specific kiddos that come to us is we want to build that resilience. We want to help them, provide them tools to re-engage in life again. And so we do that from a great deal of exposure into the community to do things. So volunteering in the community or just activities, uh, simple things like grocery shopping,
Hmm.
um, and all of those to just help them engage in life and be able to use what they're learning in those different settings. Now, the program itself, of course, our kids, we have a profile, right? But there's always a spectrum. And so within that, there's going to be very different approaches for each student, based on their abilities. Clear, like age, for instance, our 13-year-old is going to have very different expectations placed upon them um, versus one of our 18-year-olds, for instance. So some of those are going to be age based. They're going to be just their developmental abilities. We have
Hmm.
kids that, while chronologically they're one age, they function at another.
Sure.
And so there's some basic pieces, right? There's some basic things that we are going to work with all the kids on, but the flavor and the nuances of how that is developed and nurtured in each one of those kids is going to be very individual. It's going to be on their own timeline, on their family's timeline, and what works for them. And it's going to be catered to meet what their specific goals are as a family, to help them get where they need to be.
Now, so for our listeners, if a parent is listening to this, or a
Mhm.
young girl, a teenager, 12,
Yes.
13 to 18, right? That's the
Yeah.
age
We do 12. It's very
ish.
rare, but yes, we
Okay.
can do 12.
So if it's someone that's listening is in that age range, or if it's a parent that they have a daughter in that age range that's struggling, how would they just get in touch with you? Is it the program primarily based in Utah, or do you have other programs like sister campuses all over the
Yeah,
country?
we are a small private program. So it is just us. And while we are located here in Utah, none of our students are from Utah. We serve students all across the country. Yeah,
Oh, it's
we're
virtual, so it's all done virtually.
no, they live with us.
Oh, they
They
move. Oh, I got it. So then how long this is cool. How long great.
Yeah.
How long is the program then?
Average is about 12 months. Like I
12
said,
months.
there's not like a requirement, but that typically with our um I won't get too far into the weeds,
Oh,
but
this is
basically with
great.
our
So
typical
whoever's listening,
student
they can
and what
come.
yeah,
I
and
got it.
what
12
they
months.
need. Yeah, it typically takes 12 months. There's a process for admitting a student to our program,
Mhm.
and we use fantastic professionals called educational consultants. Well, what it really is the parents use them, and these education consultants are professionals in finding a good match. And so these consultants know us well. They know what we're good at. They know what doesn't work so well in our setting. And so they will help make that match. And then the parents make the ultimate choice. And so, in that part of that very comprehensive admissions process, we're looking at those things to make sure that we can offer that family the level of care that they need, and that we're the right fit for them, that our approach works, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, our girls live with us. We provide all of their education. I mean, their day to day. I mean, our staff are there tucking them in at night and waking them up in the morning. Meals, everything. Their
What do
life
some
is
of the
with
girls
us.
and what do some of the girls, struggle with that come in? I'm trying to get more specific for our listener. So,
Yes.
as the interviewer, I wanna make sure I do a good job and don't drop the ball. They're probably saying, "Well, wait, what do I need to struggle with to come there? This place sounds amazing." So what are some kind of the
Yeah.
common struggles that people come
Yeah. So I
to
mentioned
get
that,
help?
the broad piece of anxiety and depression,
Anxiety and depression,
but yeah, but we see
trauma. I think trauma as well,
trauma,
you mentioned.
yes. We see a number of girls who have experienced sexual assault, and all of the associated trauma and such that goes with that. School
PTSD.
avoidance and anxiety,
Yeah.
um, a lot of perfectionism, that, that's really rooted in the anxiety piece. I can't be perfect, so I'm just not gonna go. I'm just not gonna get out of bed.
Ties into their
Um,
self-value and self-worth. Yeah.
Yes, we do see substance abuse, not as a primary, like, we're not a good place for a child who is actively addicted or needs some primary substance treatment, but secondary, yes. Self-harm,
Mm,
suicide ideation and attempts. Many of our students have made attempts, serious and otherwise. Eating disorders. Um, we have, even as significant as sex trafficking,
mm.
um, and uh, s- online solicitation, and those things that are pretty.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is the scary. It's the scary stuff.
Well, this is
Um,
great that you're listing all of these. So whoever is listening,
yeah.
if they feel like they fit into any of those categories, you're there to
Mhm.
help. That's and
Yeah.
how do you have is there a certain, I know this is a tough question to answer, but if a parent is listening and they're wondering, well, what's their success rate? How, I mean, I know it's hard to measure,
Yeah.
but how does that, I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah. And so, in regards to success rate, when we're talking numbers, because that's mostly what people want to know,
Right,
they want to know numbers, and obviously, I mean, it goes without saying, that's very subjective, right? It's going to depend on so many factors. But
right.
what we're finding with the approach and the model that we use, we're finding that 80% of students, who complete this program, um, are successful. And what successful means is that they do not go back into a higher level of care. That
Mm.
doesn't mean they never have therapy again, or they never have depression or anxiety, because many of these things are lifelong battles, and it's a big piece. But what it means is they're not getting rehospitalized. They're not having to go back into a treatment program that is more restrictive or more contained. Um,
Those are
you know,
major wins, major wins, by the
yes,
way.
it's they're staying in
Major.
a lower level of care. They're able to attend school.
Yeah.
Um, because it's not uncommon for students to leave us and go to another program that's more community integrated, for example, and more freedoms, but it's still kind of a program.
Right.
So So that's kind of what success is considered when we speak of that number, about 80%. And it was really fascinating. I was involved in some research several years ago, and we were looking at just that success rate, and we were specifically looking at complete program completion. You know,
Mm,
when you've checked the box and we can say, yes, they've met their treatment goals, they've done X, Y, and Z. And what we found that there was actually a more statistically significant and stronger correlation with parental engagement than in success than actually checking all those boxes. We
mm,
we love it and we're like, oh, that's great, but what we're seeing is that the influence and impact of parents being engaged and a part of the process has
yeah,
a much more long-standing effect.
absolutely.
Um, and so and one of the things we found that was really great was that we found in doing research and following some of these kids who had been in treatment, ones who had not checked all the boxes were actually still doing really well because
Mm,
their parents were engaged and really focused on reinforcing the pieces that they had completed while they were in treatment and really stuck to it and really worked hard and that's meaningful to me because that just shows I'm big on. I mean, I love working with kids, but I love working with parents. I really do, and that just lets me
it's a team. It's a
know
team
that
effort. Absolute
yeah, it's
team
a
effort.
team effort, and so many of these parents feel hopeless,
Mm,
and it's
right.
so great for me to say, hey, you have much more power than you may realize.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, this is an absolutely beautiful center that you're at. This is incredible. How can our listeners get a hold of you if they're listening, a parent or a child?
Yeah. Well, really the best thing when you're feeling, when you feel like, oh, this is something that this is hitting the buttons. These are things that are important to me. Really, the best thing you want to do is get in contact with an education consultant
Okay.
because there are so many small nuances and pieces. For instance, you may not need this level of care. You're hearing this and you're scared and you're worried, and an ed consultant saying, you know what? You don't need something this restrictive yet. Let's get you some other resources.
Well, how
Because
would
when
they?
you're
Yeah, how would they get in touch with that
yeah,
person?
so yeah, the best way is there's an organization, it's called IECA, the International Education Consultant Association. I could totally be butchering that, but it's definitely IECA. And you can just do IECA.com. You can search for them, and it has listings of all kinds of educational consultants all across the country in different geographical areas, and reaching out to them and getting help from them. That gets you in the right direction because there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of programs.
So that's the first step. If you're a parent listening or a
Yeah.
girl, 12 to 18 that's struggling, can we say
Mhm.
the acronym again? What was it?
I Yeah, IECA. Now
IECA.
yeah, and I would say that's only if you're in that really, some of that really scarier pieces that I was talking about,
Right.
if you have kiddos running away and not coming home at night, if you have, kiddos that won't attend school because of the anxiety. But to be really transparent and really really clear, this is costly. And this is where I'll use this platform to say, the insurance coverage and the way that insurance is applied um, is not equal as it should be when it comes to mental health.
Absolutely, 100% agree. But let's
Yeah.
say if there's a listener, they say, Money's no issue. Our daughter's struggling. We want this sounds perfect for us." How would they
Mhm.
get a hold of you or
Through
your
an
organization?
education. Yeah, through an education consultant. I mean, we also, I mean, we have our own website, evacarlston .com, and they can look at us. And we do have an admissions department and lovely, and they'll work with you. Um, but
EvaCarlston.com.
mhm, Eva Carlston, there's a T in there. Um, it and
Carlston. Yep.
yes, yes, and we can work with you, but um what I try to avoid is parents having to do that runaround of calling all of these places,
Mm,
retelling their story over and over and over again.
yeah.
Um, that's how parents unfortunately can end up getting mismatched with a place that probably isn't a good fit, and they're wasting, I mean, let's, yeah, money's no object. They're not wasting money, but they're wasting their child's time, their time away from home. They're wasting their resources and the emotional energy. And it's so important that they get a place and they get to the help they need. And it might just be that they need just a day treatment program, or, some other kind of support. Um, Definitely another resource, other than an ed consultant, is just their own therapy. Get in therapy, talk to your own therapist, get your child in therapy, and get their recommendations. We get a lot of referrals directly from therapists because they're like, yeah, I've been working with this family and this is more than they can handle in just outpatient therapy. They need residential care. So, and we'll tell you when you get to us anyway, are you doing your own therapy? Get your own therapist, because this is a lot. And we're just not in a place um in our greater world community where we can talk about mental health, in a way. I mean, we just finished Mental Health Awareness Month, was last month. And one of the things we're talking about is it's still taboo in so many circles to talk about mental health care, and, oh, heaven forbid, preventive
Right.
mental health care. People are okay saying I'm going to the dentist and getting my teeth cleaned, but they're not okay saying, hey, my husband and I went to do some marriage counseling,
Right.
without, because people, what's wrong?
Right.
No, there's nothing wrong. We're
Right.
just making sure everything's okay.
Right.
And if we can get that Mental Health Parity Act that was passed, to be applied uniformly so that parents can get the coverage and such that they need, that would make people have so much more access to
Absolutely.
these services, instead of having to wait till they have to be hospitalized
Exactly.
or
That's a
have this level of care.
100% agree. That's what our whole program is about. Prevention,
Mhm.
preventing the unspeakable,
Yes,
a parent's worst nightmare, preventing that from happening, not
exactly.
reacting to this happened. Now what do we do? Well,
Yes.
let's prevent that.
And
So
unfortunately, yeah, and that's where I'm at, in we're seeing parents and these kiddos after they have, they where
tried
it's just
everything.
getting hit DEFCON 5.
Right.
And I spent years working in family preservation, where I would go work with parents in their homes to prevent, that's the whole word, prevent kids from being
Mm-hmm.
removed. And you can't get anybody to provide those services to
Mm.
families.
It's amazing.
They
So
won't, it's just heartbreaking.
it is. Well, so for our listeners, then the three steps, right, Corey? You're saying there are three. Step one is to find someone wherever you live, a therapist,
Mhm.
wherever you're at, someone local where you can get to them once a week, twice a week, whatever fits for you.
Right,
And then if that
right.
works, great. If they need a little more support, then it would be the acronym. I need to write it
Um,
down.
yeah, it would be getting an education consultant,
An
and you can
education
find a
consultant,
list of, yeah, the IECA. So
IECA.
yes,
Okay.
they are the Association of Education Consultants, and it's great because there are ed consultants that aren't part of that, but the IECA is the bulk of, they're ones that are collaborating, working together, making sure that they are, adhering to, best practices and what's going on in the field of mental health, and they're good resources,
So that's step
for
two.
parents.
That would be for a
Mhm.
parent, right? And that's first try local, then the ed
Yes.
consultant.
Mhm.
Then, if all of that is helpful, but they still need a little more help, then they would reach out to
Mhm.
someone like you.
To a program like ours,
Okay.
and see, it's yeah, and the only step that I would add in there is if there's a significant school piece involved, would be to reach out to the school for, IEP, special education support, if there's a school piece that is impacted by this as well, because many school districts can offer support services.
I love it. This is all so, so great, Corey. And what would you, if you have any parting advice for our listeners, anyone that's struggling with anxiety or depression or self-harm of any kind, what would you
Oh my
recommend to the
goodness.
parent or to the teenage girl?
Yeah. Do I have a time limit?
No, as long as you like.
Well, well, for sure. what I would say to a kiddo, to a student, if they're hearing this, talk to a trusted adult. I know that's not always your parents, but talk to a trusted adult. I hope it's your parents. Just say, I need help. I have kids we're working with right now. They're saying, I need help. Yeah, I don't want to leave my family, but I need help. I can't
Mhm.
feel like this anymore. So as even if it's an anonymous hotline and you just need to talk to somebody, please reach out and get help. Um, you know, for parents, that's something that's so hard because I can't tell you how many parents I've come across, in my career that have said, "Gosh, where were you guys when she was 12 and 13?
Mm.
How we never knew." Things like this. So it would, um, anything that you can do to facilitate conversation and talk to other people, ask around. Um, and find those resources, even if you just talk to, like I said, an education consultant, and just get an idea. Many of them will just do a quick consult with you and kind of
Mm.
lay those things out. But take care of yourself. As a parent, it is so important. You can't be there for your kid. You can't provide them support. You can't see the things you need to see if you are not in a space where you can, um, provide the level of support that your kiddo needs. And so make sure that you're doing your own work, that you're receiving your own therapy, and that you are making sure you can be as 100% as possible. It's let's be realistic.
Love it.
It's
You're right. We can't take care of anyone.
I question sometimes. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm telling other people what to do, and I can't even do it myself. It's rough, but it's I can't underestimate or underrepresent how important that personal work is, and even modeling for our kids. Like, let's tell our kids, yeah, it's okay. Mom's getting therapy. Mom's doing this. It's something that we can't prepare for.
Right.
Um,
And
you
we all
know,
need
and we all need, yes,
self-care, number one.
yeah,
'Cause you're right. If
yeah,
we're struggling, it's hard to help others. It's hard to help our kids if we're really
mhm,
struggling. We help
mhm.
ourselves, we help our kids, modeling, like you said.
Yes. And we are in the middle. I mean, I feel like it's almost a cliche, but it shouldn't be, that we really are right now in the middle of a mental health crisis in this
Absolutely.
country, and I would say arguably the world. It is significant.
Mhm.
The children that are coming to my program are getting
Mm.
younger and younger,
Mm.
and the impacts of the last year are more and more prevalent in the reason for why we're seeing kids and their inability to deal with the seclusion or the rapid changes that impacted them through this worldwide pandemic. And so we're seeing it in adults, we're seeing it across the board. And there there needs to be support for all of these individuals across to have that. And I just can't minimize the importance of that mental health support that people need right now.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Corey. And thank you for sharing that. Those are incredible suggestions, and I I,
Mhm.
I don't know what to say other than thank you. What you've shared with us today is incredible, and I'm sure our listeners got a lot out of it, as did I. And thank you for all the resources and all of the tips and the kind of the stages that
Yeah.
whoever's listening would be it would be helpful for them to go through, seeing someone
Mhm.
local, expanding it a little bit
Yeah.
wider, and then eventually, but and even for the parents too, to take care of themselves, which will give them a better life, but also enable them to help their kids even more and support them to their fullest ability. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's so true. Sometimes we put ourselves aside for others, for our
Mhm.
kids or even our friends, and we put them first, and then we're
And
drained
then,
and we're wondering
yeah,
why am I so
yeah,
drained? Oh yeah,
I
I need
know.
to take care
And it
of
and
myself.
it really is. I mean, there are so many services out there. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this 25 years, something like that. I started when I was 10. I was really young.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's we all did.
No, I've been doing this a long time and have had the privilege of working with so many different programs, so
Mm,
many different people that are in this helping field, that just they get it. They get it, and it's whatever we can do to get more access for families and kiddos in need, is what we want to do, because it's the reality of where we're at right now.
amen to that. Corrie Norman, thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of our show, and thank you for what you do for a
Thank
living
you.
and how you help kids every day and families. I think it's incredible. So thank you so much for being a part of this.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you having me.